that was the best place to work ever. You know, I don't feel isolated, but you have to work at being connected.
Yeah.
Do you feel isolated in your portable, Andrew?
A little bit.
Yeah, and I guess because
Somewhat.
you guys are behind us.
Yeah, we don't get the, like, view out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're behind us, and so, yeah. It takes,
Well,
and
it certainly
people,
looks
yeah.
funny, and it doesn't look portable to me.
Yeah.
From the inside.
Yeah.
No, yeah, inside we work hard at trying to keep it not portable-ish.
I wish I had no bathroom.
I know, they couldn't believe when the new
Really
portables
bad.
came in, why didn't I move? And I go, why am I going to move to a smaller portable when
Yeah.
these are already small? I was like, I am fine with
So
my
the new ones
bathroom.
have bathrooms?
The new ones have
That's
bathrooms.
kinda nice, huh?
It, well, yes, except for that they don't get cleaned as well as they should,
Yeah.
and
They take up about.
they take up a huge chunk of
Oh,
the
really? And
space.
these kids like use them a lot?
Oh,
Yeah.
she wanted you here so that your back wasn't to the camera.
I'm happy to have my back to you.
Okay, then we're gonna move
We're gonna
this
rotate.
way. We're gonna rotate.
That's not
Elpa, your little thing has
Oh.
these toys with her. I'm like, toys in Elpa?
Yeah.
No. And she looks at me. Does she not speak English or is she just playing me?
She does.
Yeah. And I go, are those yours? And she looks at me with these big eyes and I go, you're not supposed to bring toys. Because she went back to class before she came out. So she had, and then she had this little purse full of stuff.
Serious?
Oh, yeah.
Possibly just move you two around towards,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit, Jill, I'm not gonna put that front and center right there, I promise.
Oh, I'm front and center.
I was trying to make
She
it.
likes to be front and center.
Jill, but you moved that way. I was trying to make it so
Yeah.
that you weren't going to be there.
The wall is scary to me.
Okay, we're good, that's
So,
fine.
okay, all right.
I could not find the one that you said was updated.
Okay.
There were so many pages I couldn't. I was like,
Okay.
I was just looking
alright.
for what we, you know, the indicators of what we wanted that to look like.
The only thing we had done was on the email because we had decided it yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't
So,
crazy when
no.
I couldn't
Nope.
find it. That's okay.
I
I'm
updated it
happier
at 11
now.
last night, but
Because I kept thinking, what
Yeah.
the heck?
All right. So I'm facilitating. Gia is our recorder and our data compiler. Thank you for getting that to us. And Jill's going to keep us on time and
Yeah, I always take that.
make sure that our assessments are ready to go. So our roles, we're meeting Wednesday mornings at 7:45. We are on time. We're prepared and ready to start right away. We have our CFA given. We have our data collected. Our data is compiled. Everyone will have a voice here. We also agree to be professional and supportive, and we always assume best intentions.
yep.
Awesome. Okay.
Alrighty.
So we're starting out today looking at our CFA for relationships, and we have two different ones.
Yes, we have two CFAs because we did not meet last week. Okay, so on the paperwork I just passed out on page 7, it's labeled at the bottom, we have our results, and comparing it to, so we have 10%, this is just CFA 2, we have 10% meeting, 52% approaching, and 38% still far to go on our relationship standard. And if we look, but what's exciting,
This is number 2.
yes, but if we compare that to number 3, there's a lot of growth.
Yes, there was.
So we went from 10% meeting to 18% meeting, 52% approaching to 51% approaching, and 38% far to go to 32. And so that's really, really, really exciting. It's like, oh my gosh, they're sort of starting to get it. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we all had the same, that was my concern last night when I was looking.
Well, it was just what was on the email, yeah. So, looking at analyzing the data, what do we have? I typed some things up last night so I wouldn't forget them.
So on CFA 2, the French and Indian War question, I had 17 twos, so 57% of the class at 2, and they were really close, and I would write close on there if they were so close to getting that 3.
Yeah.
For the most part, they were getting either a weaker conceptual relationship, or they were getting a lot of those surface relationships and missing the conceptual ones.
So they're still getting what's exciting is they're getting a conceptual relationship. It's just weak.
Yeah, they're definitely not saying things that would go in the middle of a Venn diagram anymore. So I think we've eliminated that.
I had 22 of my kids get approaching, and the reason is that they weren't giving surface relationships, and I didn't give them a 1 for this because they were getting conceptual relationships, but it wasn't answering the question. They were answering the question essentially, and I don't know, I was like, did I write it wrong on the board?
I know. That's why I had so many in the 1 column.
They
You
did.
guys are making no sense.
They were writing what, so our question was, using a bridge map, explain the relationship between the colonists and the British government after the French and Indian War. They were explaining the relationship during the French and Indian War. And it was driving me nuts because they were spot on. And I was like,
It's exciting.
I was so excited because it was very conceptual. They had it, and I was like, that doesn't answer the question. It's after the war. What happened after the war, not during the war, not what their relationship was during the war.
What they were fighting for.
Yes.
That was what I ended
And-
up with ones.
And and I gave them 2 because it was a relationship, and the 1s is definitely means it's no relationship, and so it was just that they had the wrong question, and I don't know if I didn't make it clear when I wrote it down. I don't know if that was what we had talked about a lot, and so that's what
That's what I saw.
You know?
It was more, and I did not give them 2s for it because they were fighting for the land. They were still on the land piece.
Oh, and my kids weren't. Yeah, my kids weren't there.
Yeah, so I didn't give them.
Yeah.
They may have.
My kids, their conceptual, it was, let me get it out. So they had, English government had to pay to keep the peace. So this person, one relationship is the English government had to pay to keep the peace because if they didn't pay to help in the war, there would be more fighting and they would have lost the land. So they had that big conceptual piece, but
Yeah.
that was the piece happening during the war, not after the war.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's I got a lot of that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
And
and
so
I-
I didn't give grades for. I
Yeah.
didn't give the points because, and that's where I think we break down sometimes is because you're seeing that as conceptual, which certainly it is. But I'm kind of one of those, okay, straight line delineate. This is what we said it should look like. So I'm grading on that and saying, no,
Yeah.
these kids didn't get that.
But I didn't give them a 3 for that.
Yeah.
No, I know.
gave them a 2.
But I'm just saying,
And-
if they were off the mark
Yeah.
on what we asked them to answer, because that's what happened on yesterday's as well. They were still stuck on the land stuff. Because
Okay,
that
so-
article was so difficult.
Yeah.
The sub said it, the kids said
Yeah.
it, you said it in your emails.
Yeah.
And so because it wasn't specific to what we asked, I didn't give them the points. And so yeah.
Well, it sounds like, yeah, she had more of that conceptual piece in that example.
I don't think, because if I go, are they approaching?
Yeah.
Yes, they are
Yeah.
approaching the standard. They are not
Right.
far
And
below
I
the standard.
had quite a few that went
And
to that
that-
land piece. Just
And I did
and I kept doing
that. You can get a chair.
One category.
I
yeah.
did that with this third one. I gave more
Okay.
2s for that reason because we talked about it.
Yeah.
But on that first run through, it's like, you guys are so far off. That's not even what
Yeah.
we asked. So
And I'm curious because we did that timeline last time. We were doing those articles, and I think they were getting mixed up about
Yep.
when things happened. So a few of mine did that as well. They said, "Well, the French won the war," or
Oh, yes.
after
Yes.
the war, the French did this, and
I did get French won the war
yeah.
too.
So I'm wondering if keeping that as
And
a
that the
common
British
strategy would
and
be
the
good.
colonists were
Yeah.
fighting for the land, and the British won the land. Guys, so
Okay. So
it is confusing.
are we talking about, okay,
1 or 2, 2 or 3.
2 or 3? I
Both.
just need to know.
They were going
Well, I'm
back
just
and
trying
forth.
to track data.
Yeah, I think for 2, obviously they had a lot of strengths with that one. They were able to identify a lot of surface relationships.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily what we had picked out in our rubric,
Yeah.
but like I said before, they weren't just comparing and contrasting exclusively. There was some deeper thinking going on there. And quite a few, which is exciting, quite a few of my ones were students that were just absent that day. So
Well, that's
I'm
what
excited
I
to see
got
what they can
too.
do. Yeah.
When I went in, I had a pile of Tuesday, or the second one, the kids just didn't turn it in. A pile of them. So I would say their misconceptions are more focused
That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
because they're still having misconceptions, but they're not all over the place. They're narrowing it down somewhat.
Yeah.
Why do we think that is?
I think the material is confusing.
No, but why do I think that it's more focused? Why do we think that it's more focused?
Because we went back and specifically taught, and then with the sub, also with Miss Kimball, told her, and with you must have told Ron a more specific
Yeah.
thing. And for me, I went in and specifically talked about the taxes and why were they upset. And some kids even hit on the Stamp Act, which
Yeah.
shocked me because I hadn't focused on that.
And I think the bridge map has helped too, giving them a visual to do it.
And something more specific to
yeah.
grab out what in the world are these articles talking
Yeah.
about.
Okay.
Awesome. So CFA,
Specific teaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
specific yeah, being
Yeah.
more explicit. So CFA 3,
Yep.
curious how that went.
So it's on page
Yes.
8.
That was
We
fun.
could take, this was a hard one.
This was the hard
This
one, yeah.
text
It's really hard. This
was-
text is awful.
really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wait, that's this one.
but what was exciting to me was that we had an improvement.
Yes.
Even with
Yes.
the tough text, I was like, wow.
Well, and I think, again, I think the improvement is like, well, for me anyway, it was saying, looking at it and saying, just like you explained, okay, it's not that they didn't get no relationship whatsoever. They got a relationship. It just may not have been the one we wanted.
Yes.
That was why because before mine always looked really terrible because I was so hard on the grading piece of, wait, that's not specifically what we were asking. But I loosened it up to, okay, they did make some kind of connection to the text with a relationship. And so
yeah.
that's how I ended up with more
And
twos,
that
honestly.
does help because, it gives you more information
Yes.
as opposed to
Yeah,
just
and
the
just
ones
saying
over here. And
ones.
the, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why when we calibrate it together and
Yeah,
you
that
share
was really
that I am
helpful.
gonna,
Yeah.
I'm going to, give them some credit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Than that.
Because they're getting it, but they're just not there.
Right.
You know.
They're very focused on the tax piece. That they
Yeah.
didn't want the taxes because everything I've talked about anyway. It's like, why
Comes
did this
from
all
that.
start and why are they so upset with the England?
My kids, so I was using the timeline and they kept saying, they went back, I was kind of disappointed because a lot of my kids went back to saying what was the same between the British and the colonists all of a sudden. And it was like they stepped back to where we were at CFA 1.
Well,
And I don't, and not, I'm just looking at my approaching kids.
Yeah.
That's what about half of my approaching kids did. And that was a bummer to me. I was like, oh, what is going on here? And then they were getting confused between the British and the colonists.
Still
And they were,
confused.
and they hadn't, my group hasn't been doing that. And all of a sudden the British didn't like the taxes. And I was like, oh.
it's just like my kids coloring the coats red.
Yeah.
And the,
And then they were explaining
Yeah.
why the British didn't like the taxes. And then there was that part of me saying, I've talked about how the colonists are still British. They're still part of England. But we're referring, and so I was like, did I confuse,
Yeah.
it's
It is
confusing, and
confusing.
definitely my kids also were confused between. They're still connecting England and colonists simply
Yeah.
because they are still connected by the piece that we keep talking about. So they still
Yeah.
think. But did you guys use the actual?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I thought when I kept reading this is where I think why they focused on the taxes again.
Well, yeah, because that's
Yeah,
what
that's
it was
what the
supposed
question-
to be.
yeah.
That's what the question
Right,
was.
but we also wanted to bring in the Stamp Act and and those other things with that original the stuff from you. Because 2 times in a row now we've asked why they're upset with taxes. So I feel like I'm getting the same results.
That was kind of,
Yeah.
I thought this question was very similar, but then when I looked back, I was like, okay, we are asking 2 different things, because we were asking essentially the proclamation of 1763 the last time, and then this time it's what effect, it was that piece that the, CFA 3, I'm done with this one.
This is CFA 3.
Yeah, no, I'm
The
trying to
CFA
find
3.
my paperwork here. You know, England thought that they were in charge of the colonists, but the colonists believed they could take care of themselves. And so that was that idea of the new taxes, with England trying to say, well, we have new taxes for you because we are in charge of you.
Yeah.
And that's the new piece.
Right,
That
but
was
we
that
didn't
new.
that article doesn't focus on them ruling themselves as much as even the book does, if you go into the book too. So in my group, with my kids, that was not a focus. So that's where confusion would definitely have come in. Only a couple of kids picked up on that.
Yeah.
And those were my
Yeah.
3s. I literally gave those kids 3s because they picked up on that.
So, and one of our things is, because we were unable to meet last week because it was we all of a sudden were told no meeting week. We didn't get to prep for the CFA as much as we would have.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially for as difficult of an article as this was.
And
I
the
think,
fact that we had subs last week.
yeah,
Yeah.
Too.
we need
Right.
so
Challenges.
I'm going to write on our
And
reflection. I'm going to write on our I'm going to write on our reflection sheet
Yes.
that we need to reanalyze the reanalyze our teacher examples.
Yeah.
Because we actually
And
hadn't
question.
done that thoroughly from the
Yeah.
time before.
We had done it like on
Yeah.
we've been much better about that, and
Right.
and this
So I was
and-
hoping we'd spend some time on that today. Like that was one of my notes.
and I'm hoping, are we going to do it with this one or with our next CFA?
Hopefully the next one.
Okay, I was going to say I want to do it
Yeah.
with the next one.
Well, it's
from
nice.
this.
It's nice to have 2 CFAs since we had that week off.
Yes.
We have 2 because CFA 2
Need
was
to
better
reanalyze
prepared. I
teacher
think we did a better job
example
with
and
getting ready for that
question
one.
we asked
It was what
for next year. Yeah,
what
that
the
was
focus should have been from the article. Because again, Mrs. Kimball, because so many of my kids were in ELPA when we taught it, she literally had the rug full of kids. Because I said, pull as many of the ELPA kids down on the rug as you need to. And she said nearly most of the class came down because the article was so difficult.
I just as a bonus thing that I did, and what I did do is I added everything in this article to our timeline, and that was really helpful because, and I keep referring back. This is before, because they know when Paul Revere happened, and they keep going and they're fighting. I go, they're not fighting yet, and it's hard. So that timeline piece was very helpful, even though my kids are getting confused between.
I haven't
two.
started a timeline for that reason because we're doing one with fever. And
So,
I was like,
well,
we
and
need to because we said we were going
yeah,
to.
we have it on
and
our
I
common
need to start
instructional
that.
strategies, and it's really helped.
Yeah.
And Mike, have you been doing your
Yeah.
timeline? And my kids have their own, and they
I gave
add
them all
it.
the paper for it.
Well,
we just
it's-
hadn't started.
okay,
it.
yeah.
It's so
I'm
interesting
gonna-
to see their misconceptions
Yes.
about, when
Yeah.
fever happened before American Revolution,
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it
it's hard to keep
didn't,
track of those
actually.
years. Yeah, I know. That's what they think,
Right.
though.
And
Yeah.
then one of the things they made some off the wall comment about like Abraham Lincoln being in that time frame.
Oh yeah, they.
Yeah.
Because we talked about that during President's Day. So that date, I said, you guys, this is really hard. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling like I need to do a better job of lining it out very specifically.
I think it would be worth today, Jill, you taking today's day and doing just a timeline with what we know
well,
so far.
I don't know because we have other stuff that we're doing. We've got ELPA kids out and all
Well,
that.
but
so anyway, for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
just really solidifying the data for them, just the information.
Yeah. And giving them the specific years is helpful to get them used to seeing the numbers.
Well, that's what I was
Yeah.
doing with
sequence.
fever. We were
Is that,
going back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fever, 1793. Is that before 1763?
Yeah.
So, okay, cool.
Okay.
So, do we feel like, there's so much good information in those 2 CFAs, especially number 2, that gives us a lot to work on for the next piece, which is
Yes.
moving on with instruction.
So I'm sitting here thinking, the thing that we need to do is clarify with them who is what. I think that's the most
Yeah.
struggle we're
And I
having,
was-
because
yeah.
we're realizing they're able to pull relationships, which we've been working really hard on, and that's been a struggle at first. But now, they're confused on the information.
Yes. And it's because it's hard and it's
Yep.
big vocabulary. You know, proclamation and Stamp Act and sugar. I had somebody say, well, they used sugar and they used paper. Okay. Yes, they did, dear. That means he actually read it, though.
Yeah.
That's
Because
good.
they were talking about the paper with the money.
And that's such a hard concept to understand in just that reading. Like,
Parliament.
we have to
Yeah.
explain it to them. Yeah.
That was where Jana was saying, oh my gosh, this article, I read it before I taught it. So she's really good. She
Yeah.
gets in there and digs into the stuff. And she made the 3-column notes. I'm not so sure that process is as effective as we would have hoped.
The 3-column notes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that the timeline is going to be more efficient for them and easier to line out rather than and I know we wanted
Yeah.
them to have that skill.
So that lesson 19 form, I'm finding it really helpful, except for we could almost change it to a 2-column, because we're really focusing on important information.
We
Yeah.
need to get the
And-
interesting out of
and
there because it's hard
yes.
for them to delineate.
There's a lot of interesting stuff in those
Right.
articles. Yeah.
And one of my
Yeah.
boys literally said that. He goes, everything is going in the first column or the second because I don't know any of it.
Yeah, and so they either have questions or it's going in the important information, and that interesting detail piece, they're putting stuff. Yeah, it's like
He's like, everything is interesting because these
Yeah.
are my couple of kids that really like to learn.
yeah.
And they are really enjoying the history part of this. Not that they're the only two, but he's like, I put everything in there.
Yeah.
I'm highlighting everything because.
Yeah.
And I go,
So-
okay, that's true.
So should we switch to a 2-column form?
I think we could.
we
Yeah.
could. What's our objective?
Them writing down the important information
Is my biggest objective.
is my biggest objective. They need that to find the relationship.
So would it connect to the timeline then?
Yes, the timeline just has events on it. It doesn't explain what the events mean. It doesn't explain what led up to the events.
So
you
we'll
know,
go-
like,
Yeah.
so they kind of work simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yes,
And a lot of
I filed
things,
it somewhere, didn't
because
I?
as we were reading
Thanks,
these
you keep
articles,
checking me.
as we were reading the articles, you know, I was noticing a pattern in this type of article where the important information is either the very beginning or the very end of the paragraph, and the kids were able to parse out, okay, they've stated basically their topic sentence at the beginning, and then all of these trickle down details,
Yes.
or they give a bunch of details that lead up to one big idea. So they were getting a little bit stronger at just, you know, trying to find one piece of important information in each paragraph, or
Yes.
each 2 paragraphs, and that would be the stuff that might fit on a timeline
And that's-
later or as they're taking notes.
Well,
What we
but-
were doing with main idea and key.
yeah.
So important.
yeah.
So important information. We're looking kind of We're with the articles we're using. It's about 1 piece per paragraph.
Yep.
And then, do we want our second column? Because I think we need a place for them to put. Oh, wait a minute. Do we go to? Oh, what are those notes that they want us to use for Avid?
Cornell.
Cornell's.
Do we go to Cornell notes?
I have all of that because that's what I use for my research
Good.
projects.
That, I mean, doesn't that nail it? And then at the end, we ask them to summarize.
because that's what Cornell's do.
And we're going to lead.
Because we're like, well, we're behind. Research
Yeah.
should have been done in the winter, if you look at the timeline.
Well, yeah, but we did opinion instead.
But
So,
we were supposed to do 2 things.
yeah. But then we do research again, so it's fine. So let's. Should we switch to Cornell notes?
Do we want to teach something new in the middle of trying to teach all of this?
Well,
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm sorry.
That's true.
The Cornell notes are
that's
effective
true.
for a research project. And
That's true. So, and they're used to the 2-column chart. I mean, they're used to the columns. We've been
Columns,
doing
yeah.
that a lot, and we're going to have to teach Cornell notes. But yeah, you're right.
I'm just, for my group, I will just say, I think that it would be like,
Do we? I'm gonna write on here that maybe we start with Cornell notes next year.
okay, we're at 10 after.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we gotta
We're
get
actually,
going.
yeah.
So, but let's do the 2 columns. So we'll do important information, and then do we want questions, thoughts? Or I mean, it's mostly questions I'm getting from the kids. It's the question piece.
Yeah, questions or a lot of connections for us too. Like,
Okay.
you know, this makes sense. The thing that we read, you know, last week makes sense now because we've seen this new piece, or we have some new background knowledge. So
We just need like a place for them to write
Yeah.
something else besides just the important information, because it comes up.
yeah,
Can they
But-
write, this is gonna lead into what we talked about when Andrew wasn't here. And because some of the terminology is not just relationships, but it can be connections
Yeah.
or, and so
Please
could
excuse
it,
the interruption. When you get a chance, today is Jane and Israel's birthday. So when you get a chance, don't forget to say happy birthday.
Okay.
Thank you.
will do.
Interesting.
I'm wondering
Yes.
if we can somehow formulate, like, okay, we know the important events are gonna be the events.
Well, it's
And is
important
there-
information. It's not necessarily
Yeah.
just events. It's
Right, but, and
Oh,
then somehow,
Key events on.
in the other column, the pieces that support that, we're kind of going back to that key event, which will be the relationship piece.
So and
there a way
so
to connect
so could it
this?
be like, or could it be key event important information?
I
Yeah.
don't know, I'm just saying, if we want to
Yeah.
support this terminology, this standard,
Yeah. Can you?
is
pull
there a
up- yeah.
way,
So yeah, what if it was key events, and then you know they have their year, so they put like 1763. This happened, right? And then over here they have their important info,
Here,
and they
key
explain
event.
the key event, or they add to what happened in the key event. So explain, and then
That's
over
all we need.
here it's their questions and connections.
and that can just be
is that
a random column, we don't have to teach that necessarily,
yeah?
because that
it could be
comes-
small.
It could be for them.
Small, yeah.
Just something for them.
Yeah.
Because they are getting used to that question piece.
Yeah.
And then these key events could come right off of that and go on to a
That's what I'm
Connection,
trying to
Yes.
get to. Is like
Yeah.
if we
How
line
can
it
we
out
tie-
and
yeah.
we because we know
Yeah.
reading, writing, speak, it all connects for them. So they've got to
Yeah.
do it more than once.
Yep. And that would be a good way to see it 2 ways.
And then to show this, like, okay, here's what happened, you guys. Here's how we
Yeah.
explain it. Look, it goes on here.
and that key event. Okay. So we're actually looking at 4 columns: the year, the key or the key event, the important information from that event, and then questions or connections if there happens to be, which we're going to make a small column.
So can't the key event and the year go together?
Well, it would be nice if it was just, because you're going to have sometimes just to lay it out, just to organize it. Well, just to organize it.
it's a year, then
Year
the event, and
event.
the explanation.
Yeah, year
Okay.
event. Because otherwise
So it
the
could be-
years can sometimes
yeah.
get lost in their
So
writing.
the date,
So on a piece of notebook paper,
Yeah,
it would be like the
'cause then,
two
yeah, sometimes it's gonna be
margins, I
date.
suppose. Yeah.
just the date.
Because sometimes it will be specific date, which would be
So it'd be the two margins maybe, and then
yes.
a line down the middle.
Because I just have
Yes.
them fold
So
white
this is
paper.
year. Yeah, yeah, year, key, and then
Important
info.
information. And then this is going to be questions, comments.
And they get their own.
Okay.
Yeah,
That makes
I
sense.
think
Okay.
that would.
Questions
Okay.
and connections, I liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah, questions.
So something like that is
Okay.
what we'll look at for. Okay. Cool.
So that's what they're going to be doing.
Yes.
So that's what the student will be doing.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what they're doing.
Margins.
Do we want to do it with them on our own?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Do we want to do it on
Absolutely.
chart paper? Do we want to do it
Yeah.
on?
So, okay. Wait a minute. Can we stop before we move on so I
Yes.
can put paperwork
Absolutely.
away?
We can.
Can I grab everybody's CFA 2 and CFA 3 so I can get copies? Sorry.
Good call. Oops, CFA 2.
Thank you. Okay. This is 3, 10, 15. This was 3. Thank you. Okay, so that's good. 3, 3, 15. Okay, perfect. Thanks. So I can just. Okay. We're doing good.
Yes, we got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So back to the.
So we're gonna do timeline.
Yeah, back to the question. I have my timeline up, but I'd like to make a new one that's more specific to the time frame, like a closer look. I don't know how to describe that.
I made two
Yeah.
timelines. I made
Yeah.
a timeline from 1400 to 1800
Yeah.
because
A big
it went
one, yeah.
because we were trying to say, okay, this is where this takes place, and here's
Mm.
all the background knowledge and this is,
Mm-hmm.
and then I made another one that was 1750 to 1800. And so then I wrote in there, we're going to narrow in. And
So
then
you could have that above it or something? and
I have, they're
make it-
two the exact same, and then I
Oh,
just,
yeah.
I'll draw a picture of what I did. So here's the one from 14 to 18. And then it has all the stuff in between. And then I have one the exact same size, 1750 to 1800. And I went like this.
Yep.
See, and then I have the name. I can't remember what I called this.
Well, the way it's,
The American. I think I wrote the American Revolution. Is
it's
what
like
I
the
called
making
this.
of America and all of our stuff. And
Yeah.
The development of America.
And this was the colonization of North America, and this was the American Revolution. And so this, I said, see American Revolution timeline, and it's the same size. And then I have, if you want to, we can go look at it afterwards.
That'd
And
be
I
helpful, yeah.
just, and so then I gave them the piece of paper, and they have this timeline on one side and this timeline on the other.
Yeah.
And so this one we're kind of done with.
yeah, I would say.
And then, but now we're putting things here. But I did put on this one like Paul Revere, because that's something I put on here. Fever, because they can tie. Those were the events they
Right.
tie. But then I put them on here as well, so they can see. Okay, here's more details of what happened.
Awesome.
You
Okay.
could do this like 100 years, or just say this is 50 years.
Well, because it's just the American Revolution. Like, so this was 1775, which is right, around. So this is all the events leading up. Here's right where, 1775, 1776, Declaration of Independence, and then the stuff after the war. So,
That's good. I think we should do that. So have them do it on paper, and then we do it on the board, and it stays up.
and I have the
Constantly
have
add.
the big long paper in my room if you guys want some.
It's the short paper.
Yeah.
There's a roll in covered. So
Yeah.
you must have taken the small roll that was in the.
I've had it in my room for like 3 years.
Because I had one and I put it away finally because it was taking up space and it disappeared.
Oh, really?
So I had it open.
No, but because I've had it in
I
there
just
forever.
did that this year, and I
Yeah.
had to open the new one because I couldn't
Oh,
find the
really?
other short
Oh.
one. There were 3 when we
I have
cleaned out the kiln room.
Yeah.
Whenever.
Okay.
I have one that's been
um,
there
Yeah, I
forever.
just got
but you
rid
guys
of
are
it.
free to.
So
okay.
so back to so we have the timeline figured out. Back to the chart. The most natural thing for them would be to do it in their composition books, and for me to do it with them in my composition book. But I have a little bit less wall space. So, do we want that up? I can make that work too. We just kind of need a team decision.
Okay, so just a minute. Our new 3 or 4 column chart. I don't know. What do we have a name for that? We want to call it event chart.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that's what we're gonna call it.
Let's make it a new mind map. Let's make up our own mind map name.
Event map.
Event map. There we go.
All right.
And
Some new
for me
notes.
personally, with my group of non-writers, I have to have things up because
Yeah.
it takes them
Yep. Okay.
so long to copy anything. So if I have it up on the wall, they're able to at least sit beyond the other kids that have copied it.
So you do it. I think.
It's just hard because it's so hard to fit all that on. it ends up being like miles long.
You know, I would prefer to do it on the chart.
That's cool with me. Yeah.
But I don't mind, but the kids are going to have their own copy, whether it's in their
Yeah.
composition book or, like, I use loose leaf paper and it's going to go into their American Revolution folders.
We have those going.
So,
Did you make?
we didn't get, Andrew was gone. We haven't seen him for a week. So, because we just made those. We'll have to show,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because we were like, because we were finding
Yeah, yeah.
all this stuff. It's like,
It's
how
all loose, yeah.
how can we keep, and so
Rather
we
than
just,
keeping in their reading folders, I
Yeah.
just grabbed folders and
Oh.
gave them a coloring sheet. They were so
Very cool.
excited they got to color with Miss Kimball last week.
yeah. Okay, wait.
Oh my gosh!
Sweet.
American
You
get to
Revolution
color?
folders.
Okay, so I'll find out about that.
Yeah, and I,
It's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just to help keep track of
it's
what they're
just
doing.
an organizational tool.
Okay. Okay, back to so we're gonna do the 4-column chart with our event map, teacher copy on chart paper.
Yep.
Shall we look at?
We gotta look at what we're.
Yeah, the new taxes is the next one.
Is
And
that
I'm
the one
probably
you wanna
not
do?
going to do this separate one because I won't have the time. I did not do this same.
Yeah. Well, and you
I-
didn't.
Yeah.
You don't. You just need this.
I'm doing this one.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I was saying the making of America, that it could be.
I can't remember what I wrote.
And
Well,
it's
let's-
part of
we'll
it's
go-
in what's in the history book too. Says something like making of America or something.
so
And
what
it
do
has
we,
that timeline. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but
Well, let's.
I just won't do that.
Mine's
first
already written down.
piece.
It's okay.
No, you won't have
the
to
title.
change it.
The title's not as big
Yeah.
as just having those events.
So
on
we're
there.
looking for the article,
Yeah.
Yep.
and I left on this.
And we wrote that. Beginnings of conflict, and then it's the early no. French and Indian War book. Is it New Taxes and the Massacre? 1776. Yeah, we got Boston Massacres next.
When's the
New
Tea Party
taxes.
come in?
That's after this one.
Yeah.
The Tea Party.
Okay, here we go. This is a big one. Let's
Yeah.
spend some time.
So yeah, should we spend some time just kind of reading?
Yep.
Okay.
Did you guys have kids do those questions?
No. I mean, I gave
Not
my
yet,
kid
no.
It's just, they were just something to.
I think this other stuff's easier to read, Gia. That packet you got from Sarah?
But it's
Shamika.
not, but it has nothing to do with this stuff.
Really?
Yeah. It's,
Okay.
because it jumps to, it's a big overview and then it jumps to Declaration of Independence. So it's, that first one's a giant overview.
Do you have clean copies of this if we mark on it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. What do we have in the social studies book?
That's what I wanted to look at because it's easier to understand.
This is,
This is still pretty.
we've got lots of new names, lots of,
new
Vocab.
like vocabulary.
Yeah.
Well, what I was
Traditional loyalties, strained,
and thinking,
polite resolutions.
what are the big ideas we want them to come away with? Not all this detail about
we're
the
around
Sons of
page
Liberty were
212.
Yeah.
Just past that.
213 is the mapping thing.
Taxes in the government, the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act Congress. Look at this.
So I love the title, British rule or self-government. Isn't that a big thing we
Yeah.
want them to understand? So that can be like,
We're currently at page 220.
okay, so here's more.
Yeah.
Here's more to show the authority that England had over the colonists still. They sent more soldiers in for the war, which was part of the Boston Massacre, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's something nicely written in, because these ones are so well.
We need something that's more precise in what we want. The idea of
This is super precise. We might want to look. This is almost too general.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here.
Yeah. And this one has a lot of review material
Yeah,
too.
it's yeah.
Yeah, and it does leave. I mean, it goes from what they've already read right into the war, as opposed to giving them the in
Yeah.
between stuff.
Nothing good
so
here.
you're
Just
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some good stuff, and there's nothing wrong with doing like one piece and then giving them another piece for the next CFA,
Yeah.
so they can.
I know
try
for my
one.
kids, I need to
Yeah.
clarify the Stamp Act, period. It was in the last article, but it was
We-
not taught, just so that they understand this
Yeah.
piece.
this is if we and it's true. It wouldn't hurt 220, 221.
Yeah. We can absolutely do that next.
So the Stamp Act's going to be on the event piece because it leads to
Yes.
more fighting because they want to repeal it, which we need to teach that vocabulary. They're also talking about, which came up in that other article, kind of the structure of the government, and we hadn't taught that yet. I steered away from it because it was another piece to me, another subject that we hadn't taught. So for my kids, I know I have to clarify what the Stamp Act was about.
Yeah.
And that just will be a sidebar for my kids.
So what's our question?
And then this piece right here is key because it's more authority. We have to clarify more that they wanted to continue their authority.
it's almost
And
the.
oh, I'm gonna say here.
Yeah.
So we have Stamp Act. I'm just gonna
Uh-huh.
write timeline info. We're gonna add Stamp Act Congress, and then we have March 5th, 1770. We have Boston Massacre. Oh gosh.
The question almost seems like, I mean, it's more simplistic, but from 220 to 221, it's really the relationship between the British soldiers and the colonists as they started to kind of flare up.
Well, and I would
And it
like,
was flaring up.
you know, one of the things I think we're doing is we're so stuck on like comparing people to people, event to event, and I know we said that's what we wanted to stick with in the beginning, but that's like say there's no relationship between Abraham Lincoln and the Gettysburg Address. You know, an event or a thing to a person. And those I think are almost easier for the kids than us trying to always do like people to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
So-
what were you thinking then?
Well, do you want me to do we want to talk about this?
Yeah.
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 Because I dug in because to me it was too hard. I was having trouble. So I started looking for things. And I have this book that's charts and blah, blah, blah. And I was showing it to Gia last week, and it specifically addresses this.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And so it talks about that establish the connections don't always have to be perceived in the same way. Everyone can find different connections. Everything's connected or related in some way. You can literally make a connection between almost any two ideas, individuals, or events. And then it talks about common relationships between ideas, peoples, and events. And then she brings out different ways. So a big event to one person. So how is Abraham Lincoln, what's his relationship to the Civil War? So what was the purpose of that? And how is he influencing that? Or a person to an event. And then the event that can cause it to one person. But see, it still can be a problem solution thing too, or
Yeah.
a cause and effect, part to whole. So, or similarities and analogies and sequence of events. So we're doing some of this, but I was thinking that one of the sentence frames that I just popped into my head was more like, because of this,
It's, yeah.
this
it's cause and
happened,
effect.
and the relationship happens because of that.
Yeah.
So there's no relationship to the Civil War with Abe Lincoln unless the Civil War happened. Does that even make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So, like, that the Civil War wouldn't have happened if Abe hadn't have abolished or tried to abolish slavery. There wouldn't have been the fighting. So there's more of a relationship that, and it's also kind of a cause and effect relationship.
Because it's almost like we're because if we say British soldiers and we say what's the relationship using the bridge map, explain the relationship between the British soldiers and the colonists in Boston after the Boston Massacre or during the Boston Massacre, we're really asking them for two answers. Where maybe we need to be asking them two questions. Using a bridge map, explain the relationship between the British soldiers and the Boston Massacre. Using a bridge map, explain the relationship between the colonists and the Boston Massacre. So we're trying to, I think we might be asking them, we're trying to make them jump, which isn't a bad thing, but I think it might be, why don't we ask them two questions? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can do that.
Does that make sense? Is that what you're thinking? Does that?
Because that's event to person.
It's
person
event to
event.
yeah.
Or a group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One person.
Well, yeah.
But I was thinking more that connection piece because we keep steering away from the word connection. And it is actually.
Standard. I
was going to pull that back out too because I was rereading that.
Explain the relationships or interactions between two or more individuals. And we've defined relationship as
Interactions.
connection.
We did put connection in there.
Yeah, it had.
I think the steering was away from like connection to their own life or connection.
Right,
to,
we didn't, but
Yeah.
it can be event to person, event to a group of people. There is a connection. You have to use that
Yeah.
terminology. I think the relationship piece is still hanging them up a little bit because they're still coming up with a connection.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Okay, association, connection, building a bridge between two things, interactions. What is unique between the two?
Right, because
Yeah.
one wouldn't have happened without the
Yeah.
other.
So we really could add how one thing caused another, or
Yes.
how one thing influences another.
Influence the event,
Yeah.
you know, what happened, what
So
England did
Yeah.
influenced why they had a Boston Massacre.
We're running out.
So it's 8:30. So what if the question was, and just a check. So we have Wednesday is our next meeting, and then that's the last day before spring break, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we'll be teaching for 4 days, right? And 5 days, and then asking our
days.
question on Tuesday. What if the question for this 220, 221 was using a bridge map, explain, what if we took the word relationship out of there and said explain how the British soldiers influenced the Boston Massacre, or how the British policies influenced the Boston Massacre?
I don't want to take the Word relationship
I don't want to take it out either.
I don't want
but
to take the word relationship
how
out.
how can we add in the word influencer, or change it to give it more of that cause effect, or
Using a
this
bridge map,
happens because of
explain
that.
the relationship between. I don't know. I think the kids are there. I mean, they're so
close.
used to that question.
They're really
They're
close,
so
yeah.
there. I would hate to,
yeah, change it too much, right?
because then they're gonna be like, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, using a bridge map, explain the relationship between the British soldiers and the Boston Massacre. And I think they could choose I almost think we could give them 2 questions
And have
to
them pick
answer,
one.
and they can pick one,
Yeah.
or they can choose to pick 2. You know, using a bridge map, explain the relationship between the colonists, the colonists in Boston, and the Boston Massacre. Jill, how are you?
Oh, well, you know me, I'm still.
Okay. I know and then I want to talk about the Stamp Act.
Well, I have to clarify that because it starts with the Stamp Act, and
Yeah.
my kids are not there yet. They do not understand the piece.
Should we say redcoats?
Well, it talks right in
Sure.
here about how this is where they got their name.
Because, you know, the thing that we said our focus is that they're confusing themselves with the information. And
Yeah.
we
Let's say redcoats
need
then,
to
yeah.
we need to clarify between the redcoats. When I'm thinking, you know, I would like to make, this is a random thing, but we need to make a chart. Just
Between British and
British
colonists. Yeah,
colonists,
I have that right
and
here.
then all
I have
the
that right here.
lists.
That's one of our
I
glad
was-
posters.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that as we were
In that
talking
unit.
earlier, and I put down just a couple
Back to our
things
priority.
because the idea being that the colonists are the people who want self-government. They believe in no taxation without representation. The British believe they can control the colonists. They still see them as like little brother.
But they also, my kids are picking up on the relationship because the British keep helping the colonists.
Yes,
and,
and
they're like, but
Yeah.
the British, they are picking up on that concept. The British think they can
Yeah.
do this because they keep helping them get out of a pickle.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but yet then these guys, the British, aren't telling them that, oh, by the way, you're going to have to pay back for that. That's how my kids are viewing
Yeah.
it. So they are getting it. It's just
Okay.
like,
And when we did Stamp Act, just really quick, so we did Stamp Act Monday because I was gone Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
I did like a little role play, and I had a king, and I had Ben Franklin and William Pitt, and then I had everyone else be Parliament, and they had to basically explain how each person was feeling about the Stamp Act and why they felt that way.
well, that's
And
in
it
one of
gave
the
them,
things.
Yeah.
yeah, it's in one of the, yeah.
It's in one of the.
And that gave them just a little bit more perspective on why that was happening. And then we
Right.
discussed that, the Declaratory Act that came after.
I didn't do that, but I did
know
do that. I was
I
the
know
king.
CFA 3 was tough, but
Yeah.
we have got to narrow in on our results indicators. Because we are all doing different things. We have got to
Yeah.
narrow it down.
Well, that's why I wanted to.
Yeah.
When I said, "What are our overall goals
Okay.
for?" Not only are we teaching this standard, but we're also trying to do it through the Revolutionary War,
Yeah.
and we haven't said what we want to have happen there. We haven't lined that out specifically. To the what are the pieces we need them to know. It is literally not the standard anymore to just teach the Revolutionary War.
Taxed.
I've
Yeah.
been looking it up because it used to be the standard.
Representation.
Now it's like what we're teaching,
Okay.
the concepts and
Yeah,
the
the
relationship
relationship,
between
so-
this whole
So
piece of
it's-
time.
Redcoats. Bloody backs.
Yeah.
We need to, okay.
So,
What were the colonists called? They were called patriots. Well, we had patriots and we had loyalists. We had Sons of Liberty.
They're the rowdy guys.
We had
you start reading about 'em.
rebels.
The Sons of Liberty
What's
are
the word?
rowdy. They want to
But
cause
okay,
war.
so let's look at our result indicator today. What
Yes.
do we want to do today?
Okay.
so today we're clarifying with the Stamp Act and the timeline and getting kind of that new note system set up. That's my understanding.
Well,
right?
or do we need to do this today? Because this
Yeah, we could step back and do that.
This, I think,
Yeah.
is gonna, we need to clarify.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they're stuck.
Yeah.
We need our,
And they'll just be copying, and we want that up.
well, and we can
want
have a
that on chart.
discussion. And
Yeah.
this is what we have. Is there anything else we could add or things that, I'm sure they're gonna come up with stuff, but.
They will too, but I want pictures too. Because they're getting confused. Like when we had them color, they all colored their coat on their soldier red.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we can pull up on the,
And I can
on the laptop.
try to do that because
So
I
we
did
wanna
find a
say
website
pictures of
that
these
had
different-
pictures, and we
yeah.
have all
Determine-
that from our glad unit. We did.
Yeah, we have.
So okay, so we're gonna clarify colonists and patriot, or colonists
And
and
British soldiers, or yeah,
Colonists
red coats.
versus
the red-
Britain.
Okay.
These are Britain. This is England. This is Parliament. This is,
The king.
yeah.
This is king.
This is like
King
they
George.
they are so confused on who
Who is who?
these guys are in North America.
And I think we should put names in, like Paul Revere. Who are the names of the colonists that we're fighting for this side? We've got King George over here. And then in Fever, it talks about George Washington. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
we
Well,
know
that's
who that
hard.
is.
Yeah,
And
that's
they're
so
like going,
hard.
"Oh, but it's a little different time frame, you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
Clarify.
Okay.
You know, I watched on TV Sons of Liberty on the History
Uh-huh.
Channel, and it was so graphic and
Yep.
and it was not real in some ways,
Yeah.
but it's like this is it would make it so much easier for the kids to understand.
Well, I have the, I got the,
Okay.
those DVDs from the library.
The why can't I think of what they're
I know,
called?
I'm looking at, they're on my desk.
The Liberty Kids.
And it's a historical.
That's something we could do
Liberty's really
Wednesday
kids.
before spring break too. Just
Yeah.
thought that last
Oh,
day.
talk about yeah.
Yeah, because they start with
So-
Boston Tea Party.
I'm not. I don't know where my page is for the agenda.
That's good.
What about okay? So Wednesday. So today we're clarifying the
Right.
colonists in Britain.
Yep.
I think, and if we get a chance, I think we review the answers to
Yeah.
the CFA
Yeah.
if we get a chance. Because that's going to then that will explain why we're doing the British and the colonists, because that's what they were really confused on.
Well, and then with that, we're clarifying the Stamp Act, or is that a separate piece?
Thursday, Friday. Well, that's a minute. Monday. Okay. So Tuesday we're asking the CFA.
Yep. Tuesday CFA.
Thursday. It's the time
Yeah.
maybe it's we start reading this. It's 2:20,
I feel like we kind of clarify the Stamp Act within.
and then we
Within this?
put it within the timeline.
Yeah.
So begin Stamp Act on page 220 and add that to the timeline and use our new 4-column chart. And then Friday is going to be the rest of it. So we're gonna go I think we would go all the way to here. So tomorrow would be this. The Stamp Act one, and then when they brought the soldiers over to show that they still had clear authority over the colonists, even though they rejected the Stamp Act.
So we'll be reading this whole class.
They repealed it.
And they'll be pulling
Well,
out.
yeah.
And that's
but-
what made England mad.
The same day
Uh-huh.
that they repealed it, they declared another act called the Declaratory Act
Mm-hmm.
that they could make any law
Yeah.
on the colonists, and the colonists couldn't fight it.
That's the piece that the kids were like.
Yeah, that was like,
Yeah.
that was, yeah.
So we'll be doing this whole class, right? They won't be highlighting, obviously. So we'll
Yeah.
have them with their 4-column
With their
chart and our
4-column
4-column
chart.
chart. And
And we go all the way to the sentence, but the soldiers were in the cities along the coast. You see where that is?
Right there.
We're gonna stop there.
Well, for the
For the
first,
first
day.
day. Split it in half.
Because
yeah.
you're going to have to explain, because this is the whole stamp back piece.
Yeah.
And they're going to need that time, and you're going to need to add it to the timeline, and they're going to need, like,
And
for
we're
us.
gonna have to explain what Congress is, because
Yeah.
we have not talked about,
Yeah.
that's part of the
And then
government that I have avoided,
Friday,
because they
we're going to
Yeah.
don't get that.
finish page 220 to 221. I wish. And you know what? And that's buying us a little bit of time because we have ELPA testing today. We have, and we're going to be doing the timeline with that. I wish we could find something fun to do with the Boston Massacre, just to.
The boys would love to reenact it.
You know what? We could maybe we should reenact the Boston Massacre on Monday. That you talk about getting the kids.
They're gonna have a fit because they're so gun sensitive now. Look at they have right, and they're shooting, and they have.
Yeah.
We had
I
to talk about why
say-
there was a big sword on the end of the right.
Because I say on my, because that really helped with your kids. I end up
Do a
acting out here.
reenactment, yeah.
Why don't we, does someone think that we can maybe try to find a,
I can try
Do
to
we-
that.
oh,
I
do you
wanted to
have it
see
in
if-
your-
I wanted to look here. 'Cause
do we have anything in the Boston Massacre there? Because I think it's very important to understand, because we reenact the Boston Massacre, but the soldiers were just protecting themselves.
they were all just protecting themselves.
You
Yep,
know-
it's right here.
Yeah. We've
It's
done this, yeah.
Reader's Theater.
Oh, nice.
Reenact the Boston Massacre,
Cool.
Reader's Theater. If I could
me
get
see
that,
how
I
many
will.
pages.
I will scan it in, and we can get it on the computer.
I know. I was supposed to get your copy. I ran out of time the other day.
That's okay.
There's 2 apps.
We have about 1 minute.
Okay.
Minutes.
We need a rubric and our teaching example. Son of a gun.
So our rubric won't change, though.
One. So
That's
we're gonna
the
ask
same.
them. We're gonna clarify to do one. Can they choose a question or do both?
Still the Boston Massacre.
Choose one
I think they should
question.
choose one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they want to do both, then that's what gets them the 4 if they get it both right. Okay. So same as earlier. That's easy. Okay, what's our answers?
Gives all kinds of back.
That's perfect.
Is that-
Monday. That's what we're doing.
And it talks about all the things you can do to support the Boston Massacre.
So that's what we can do Monday. And they should really get the relationship then. Boom.
There's the tea
Cool.
party. Woohoo!
Is the
Do you want the front covers or do you
No, I just want this. Or do you want me to have the front
Well,
cover
we want to do the
scan
whole.
it in?
I want to get you both a copy of the whole thing,
I need to scan it in.
but I clipped it and sat it on my desk.
Okay. Do I need this part?
That's what I was saying. It's just the cover
Okay.
pages. That actually.
This is
the
what
whole
I need.
piece.
I need a paper clip. I'm
Right
gonna,
here.
I was just saying, oh, thank you.
So what if we take some time to, so we're not rushing right now, what if we take some time to read this and then by Friday we have our
Yeah.
thing? Because we can do that in email. I know it's not ideal, but
Well,
Well,
we have
and
an
let's-
hour prep too.
And let's think
that's,
about
yeah,
this.
we can meet on our
Well,
prep
and we
briefly,
know
too.
this right now.
Yeah.
We already know this. What's the relationship between the
Mm-hmm.
Redcoats and the Boston Massacre? I mean, that
They were there to show their authority.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it says right there
well,
in the second paragraph,
yeah,
third paragraph.
but so the British soldiers were there to show authority,
Yeah.
but they also acted in self-defense because they were chased, they were thrown at, they were under attack.
Right, and then in the next paragraph it says that.
So, but
the
what is
colonists were angered. The colonists.
to show
The
authority?
colonists actually started it
Yeah.
by this right here. So this second piece right here.
Mm-hmm.
They were throwing rocks and name calling, and they destroyed. But then they paid them back by destroying their property.
Yeah.
And so it just was like name calling, and kind of like what happens on the playground.
Yeah. So the colonists
I
were
can relate to
angry
that.
because the soldiers were showing their authority.
Right, so they were stepping it up, but they also it says literally
So-
paid them back. So they were also retaliating when they should have been the calm, right? Wouldn't you expect them to be the
Retaliated. Oh yeah, they were bad. Well, it was the sense of liberty. The Boston was a nightmare.
But I mean,
Boston
just in
was-
general, you would have expected the British soldiers to be more like authoritative and
Yeah,
not
but-
throw rocks and go back on there
That
and
last
destroy
line
property.
too,
Thomas Gage
the
was a
uneasy,
mean man.
the uneasy calm is one
Yeah.
relationship because after that there was an uneasy calm.
Retaliated.
Okay.
Okay. So we wanna look into this a little more. We're gonna have to.
Yeah, but I think
Bummer.
that's a good start
But
though.
this is good.
It's a good start, and we've got everything we need
Do-
for
Do we
the week
think
except for that.
if we
Reverse
look
here.
at our results,
That's yours.
do you think that we will be able to get our kids? How much of our kids do you think? CFA 3.
Based on, I mean, how many are at twos? I think
If
we
we
should
can
shoot
just-
for half. I don't think we should
I
shoot
think
for
we
half.
could get. I do too. I'm
Yeah.
trying to find. What did I do as usual?
'Cause they're really close. A lot of them are really
They are
close.
so. I think we're gonna get it this time. I mean, we
That's
have
something you, Jill?
51% approaching,
Yeah.
and we went from 18%. I would really. Yeah, because these approaching kids, at least the majority of my approaching kids are really close.
Yeah. I agree.
Jill, yeah, and the majority of yours. What are you thinking?
You know, they'll get there if I clarify. I just
Yeah.
feel like it's a big jumble for them, and that's what they're saying.
That
They're
timeline
like,
will
oh
help,
my
yeah.
gosh. So just the clarifying and the piece of with all of
50%.
the stuff going on, it hasn't been that opportunity. And
Yeah.
yesterday I could tell, you know, it was
Oh,
really
it was
just
hard yesterday.
Yeah.
toss. I'm like, guys, just do your best.
Yeah, it was
Because
hard.
I knew it
Yeah.
was difficult.
It was a hard one.
Well, and it was, yeah, we've had one of those, yeah.
It's been one of those weeks.
And my boy, I don't know, did Jeff goes,
No.
I've never been more confused in my life. And he was one of the better rewrites because he doesn't
so
really
cute.
trust his knowledge,
Yeah.
but he's one
Yeah.
of my question
Yeah.
askers constantly. And he said that, and I just,
Yep.
hey, it's just, actually, I'm kind of confused too, you guys, because
Yeah.
it's been taught by 3 different people now,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
and that made it
A
hard.
lot of subs this week.
Okay,
Awesome. Okay. Good job.
Go team.
Good job, team.
Thank you guys for
We did not.
Yeah.
sorry, we're,
that was perfect.
We did
Oh, yeah,
not
right.
get to Elpa.
Yes, we didn't
We
talk
didn't get-
about that or
so
any of the
here's
other
here's my
business.
thought. How many more do you have left?
Well, that's what I have to check on. I want to look at the report to make sure.
Because what would be nice, I think we should just be able to, do you have any kids left?
I think I just have the one. Do you have my card still?
No, the kids were bringing
they
them back.
brought them back.
They should have given
I have
them
your
to
other
you.
cards. Well,
Oh God, because I only have one. I've only seen one.
yeah,
Oh no,
I had,
no!
I
When they
had
left
kids
yesterday, I
bring-
told them take
but
this back to you.
I forgot you weren't in your classroom,
I wasn't there.
and I had a person bring the green envelope to you. So